Hello and welcome here on NDT for a very special show about cricket commentary and how it's evolved over the years, and we'll bring out the panel of experts very soon. But first of all, I've got Ravi Shastri alongside me. Ravi, good to see you here, and how do you think his cricket commentary has evolved and what are the challenges?
I think first of all, Harsha, I think you must admit that it's very difficult now. I mean, it has got very detail oriented. I mean, people around the lounge room may be thinking it's an easy job, but I can assure you, and you must be knowing, it's a very difficult job for us to do. And we are always have to give all the details.
Yes, thanks very much, Ravi. To just let this discussion go on, I want to bring Nikhil alongside me.
Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is a very, very talented commentator, but he's actually a software engineer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, and Sabyasachi, in fact, uploaded a video on YouTube, got 1 million hits in just 14 days. We'll get a lot from him during the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.
We look forward to hearing from you. But you know, while I was watching Sabyasachi's video, I just laughed my lungs out. But however, while laughing and while looking at that satire, it also raised a very serious question. You know, while cricket has evolved over the years, the batsmen have evolved, bowlers have evolved, many cricket fans like myself feel that cricket commentary hasn't evolved. They still prefer the old commentary, the suave of Henry Blofield, for example, or the excitement that Tony Gregg brought, or Richie Benaud's calm while doing commentary. These are things that haven't been emulated or bettered by any present-day commentator. Why is it that we like commentary of the old, but we start enjoying the evolution that we've seen of cricket on the field? That's the subject that we'll be looking at today. And joining me on the show today, I'd like to start with the original cricket commentator in India who did cricket commentary before the cable era began, Kishore Bhimani. Thanks so much for joining us live from Kolkata. I remember listening to him in those DD days. Also another very famous Indian commentator. If you've seen live football in India, you definitely have heard him. Novi Kapadia also joins us live here in the studio. Sabyasachi, of course, I introduced, did that great mimicry, and we'll have lots more coming from him. Dean Jones and Venkatesh Prasad today on the other side of the fence. They will give their opinion on how they find cricket commentary in the present day scenario. And also Gaurav Sethi joins us. He owns a cricket website. It's one of the funniest cricket websites I've seen. It's called Bored Cricket Crazy Indian. That's right, Conrad, isn't it? And it's got great internet humor. We'll try and especially with regards to cricket commentary, we've got lots of humor there, lots of cartoons as well. We'll try and get his perspective as well on cricket commentary. But let me start with Mr. Bhimani. You know, Mr. Bhimani, you did commentary, like I mentioned. Many fans like myself enjoyed the commentary of yesteryears, not so much today. How do you see the present day commentator?
Well, let me start by saying one thing, that when we used to do commentary in the very, very long time ago, what happened was the whole structure was different. There were commentators like ourselves, and there were experts. We had Tiger Pataudi, we had ML Jaisimha, we had Abbas Ali Beg, and the idea was that the technical details would come from them. We would give a flow, the atmosphere, the scores, the statistics and all the details. It did work well for a while. Now what has happened really today is that commentators are very, very knowledgeable. They have been there, done it. That helps a lot. Today, listening to Ravi Shastri or Sunil Gavaskar or people like Saurav Ganguly among the newcomers, it's always a great pleasure to see some of the technical aspects of the game. But the question we ask is, are they becoming too technical? And the second point is that the IPL commentary, I'd like to say, reminds me very often of the freestyle wrestling commentary. You know, the red corner and the blue corner, and you know, 6 is going up in the air, double R versus double D. Now, this doesn't seem to fit in with my idea of cricket. This is IPL, this is entertainment in the red corner, blue corner. Whereas in the old days, the commentary was perhaps a little more dignified. Sometimes one misses the old days of Alat, of Omar Qureshi, of Brian Johnston, of Christopher Martin Jenkins. Now these people were commentators, they had humor, they had anecdotes. It was a lot of fun. Okay. And perhaps what I look forward to is a mix of the two.
All right, is it getting too technical? That's what we'll look into this segment of ours. But before that, I spoke about internet humor. Gaurav, could you give us a few samples of what's happening with regards to especially IPL commentary? He says it reminds him of WWE.
You know, I read sometime back on Twitter that you can absorb LSD through your ears. Yeah. So when I listen to some of the IPL commentary, it's it's so incredible because you feel you're actually absorbing different drugs. You know, each commentator is a drug. You can have a bummer trip, you can have a good trip.
Novi, I'd like your perspective now. How do you view cricket commentary over the years? Because you've seen some very famous Indian cricket commentators, and you see this IPL, as Mr. Bhimani put it, it's like WWE commentary.
No, see, first one thing I'd like to point out, I mean, the time Kishore Bhimani and all did commentary, I did other games, there were lots of restrictions. We, for instance, couldn't mention the name of a product which is sponsoring the company. If it was the Coca-Cola series, we weren't allowed, especially on national television, to say the name of the sponsor. So we had lots of restrictions that the cameras would pan on the hoardings, and you could say, a popular cold drink is sponsoring this series. We couldn't
now
mention
you're told
the name.
to say that.
Well, some of us would, then people would question you, okay, how many crates did they send to your house? So it became very difficult. We were curbed. The freedom that is allowed now. IPL, like Gaurav is saying, is more entertainment than serious cricket commentary.
Dino, you've been in the commentary box as well, and now you hear the commentators talk. How do you see, I know you're a big Richie Beno fan when it comes to commentary, and I don't think Richie Beno would ever do IPL commentary. How do you compare the present day IPL commentary to what you grew up listening to?
Well, I think he would do IPL if he was well, because he's not. If he was asked, he loves the game. He really does. But I think it all started that we go back to the Brian Johnsons in the good old days, the Arlots, and we tend to evolve and develop from there. And as all the guys would tell you, is that your directors and your producers are very important people, because they say, no, we need you to bump it up, because it depends on what the guys, our demographics, our audience want to hear. Now, in England and Australia, they want to see the vision. Shut up, commentators, we want to watch the cricket. Whereas in India, I've been told that they want to hear a bit more noise, a bit more, get involvement and get pumped up. So you've got to know your audience to actually get it right, if you don't understand. So, and then it's also your job as a commentator to try to describe what the player's trying to do. Now, if Richie Beno wasn't around when Shane Warne started, we would have no idea of his artistry, the leg spinner, the toppy, the wrong and the flipper, all the toys. And this is how he's taken. Now he's going to set him up here with the flipper. It's coming. Boom. LBW. Cullinan's gone. And great commentary. Where I try to follow that type of step as a commentator. That can you make and understand the perfection of Sachin Tendulkar going about his work, or how good McGrath is bowling stump to stump, or whatever. You've got to try and work out, or how good Dhoni is at finishing off a game. That's your job, but not to actually call, oh, that's a beautiful shot. We know that's a beautiful shot.
Right. So forecasting isn't happening, which you thought. But just before I go to Venki, just to let you know how big a Richie Beno fan he is, do you have to do us a Richie Beno, please?
Welcome back to the MCG, and it's nice to be here. Actually, it's nice to be anywhere at this stage of my life, and thank you very much.
Does that. Even the pout is perfect. Okay, Venki, two things, and we'll now get into the details. One is forecasting, what's going to happen. I don't think the IPL format really allows you to do that. And secondly, the point that Mr. Bhimani raised, there was a time when you had people who were not cricketers do commentary, so the viewers then could relate to them because they were not too technical. What is your take? Do you think there needs to be a mix and have people who have not played cricket also do commentary?
What I look at, in terms of commentary is that I know, I mean, if you get hit for a boundary, it's a bad ball and could be a great shot, but I need to see much more than, I need to hear much more than that. And that's what I look at, when commentators are speaking. Okay, why did that happen? Okay, why did he bowl a bad ball? What happened previously? What is his psyche or the mindset to do that? And how did the batsman get the better of the bowler? And this is what I look at. Yes, there is a technical aspect into execution of the skill. That's something which I look at from the commentator. Okay, so that he could explain to me, and that's what I'm looking at. And also the technical, the tactical aspect as well.
You would want that. That's
exactly what I look at, and most of the time I don't really listen to the commentators much. Yes, there is a lot of technicalities, and I've seen this when I was playing. I did hear from later on when you go back to the hotel rooms, you see the highlights or replay, and at times the commentators have said that's a bad ball. But they've not really gone into my mindset. Why did I do that, or what made me do that? it's not that I want to go and do that deliberately, isn't it? Or no one for that matter. So this is what I would like to see. And at times the commentators has been biased, partial towards their players, towards their favorite players, towards, that's something which I have not liked at all. And this is where when I have got into the commentary box, I've tried to be as neutral as possible. Yes, you need to criticize at times, yes, but not overly criticize. You've got to be, rational. That's what I mean.
Okay, very interesting points made there by Venkatesh Prasad. The first, he says that he is not the one who enjoys commentary. So how do you watch a game? On mute?
Well,
I know of people who do that.
I'll be waiting to see what the commentators are going to say for that situation. That's what I'll be looking to look forward to hear from the commentators. And more often than not, I don't really get that.
All right.
They'll be completely out of...
Okay, so not in touch with reality. How many of you watch cricket on mute? I know of some people who rather watch it on mute. Okay, there is just one gentleman there. Why do you? What is it that you don't like about?
Is there an audio problem in the TV?
Because they are just cracking the jokes. They are not telling about anything about the cricket, what's going on with the ball, and sometimes, really sometimes, they are very biased with the Chennai Super Kings.
Okay, okay. Bias is an issue. Okay, we'll just talk about bias now, in particular. Gaurav, you have a point to make?
Yeah,
about bias?
I found it interesting when Venki spoke about the bias in commentary, and I remember a few years back, and I don't know how many people do, or it again just went missing. This was when both Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma were neck and neck. I mean, I don't know how I did think that Kohli would do well, but two very prominent commentators actually questioned Virat Kohli's credentials as a hitter, someone who could get the ball across the boundary. These were questioned, and that Rohit Sharma would be better suited. We should dig out the archives and put this in.
But that is getting a prediction wrong.
No, not prediction. This was said repeatedly. This was questioning both players who were very similar at that point. I'd say,
like I said, that could be a prediction that they're making, and in a way, talenting or looking at as a talent scout and getting it wrong. That may be a question. But I go across to Mr. Bhimani. Two questions for you. Do you see in the present day commentary scenario a bias there? And also, during your times, how did you ensure that didn't come when you were doing live commentary?
Well, I'll give you a clear answer to that. No, I don't think there's too much bias today. There will be a time when perhaps a very entertaining commentator like Dino will probably give us an Australian perspective. And Michael Holding might tell us about, the Sabina Park or something, bring in something that is perhaps specific to their team or, their experience. And I think this is perfectly valid. I have seen people who don't like each other. I have known of, for example, take Ian Chappell. Ian Chappell has never thought very highly of Don Bradman. But he will not bring in a thing like this into his commentary. They are pretty fair. I think Ravi Shastri, Sunil Gavaskar, Harsha Bhogle, Ramiz Raja. Ramiz is very, very fair about whether he's talking about Pakistani players or Indian players or any other player. Overall, I don't think this bias is very pronounced. And today, one more thing about cricketers becoming commentators. There are two examples. One, of course, being Harsha Bhogle, one of my favorite commentators, who today has not played cricket and yet is very familiar with technicalities. The other is Tony Cozier. Tony Cozier, the voice of West Indian cricket, defied this whole business of test players doing commentary, and to the great improvement in cricket commentary.
Okay, we're still talking about bias. How many of you feel commentators are biased by show of hands? Okay, do you want to give me an example?
Well, over the past decade, I have seen a lot of matches, and I have never seen Sanjay Manjrekar appraising Sachin, Ganguly or Dravid, any of them wholeheartedly. I feel that's a bias.
Okay.
Maybe because of the
that could be by nature.
competitiveness.
He's critical by nature. Could
Maybe,
happen with
but
other players.
yes, still.
Okay, go ahead.
Like during CSK matches, Eric Shivaramakrishnan, he begins to cry even in a situation in a state of condition. He can cry if CSK is losing a match.
Okay.
Also, we know that BCCI recruits commentators, and the commentators cannot speak anything against BCCI.
Yeah, that is a point I'm going to touch on.
Matches, they always have to be behind the boys.
Yeah, that is a point that I was going to touch upon. That was my next point. But before that, Novi, I'm sticking with the bias bit in football as well. Do you face this? I'll tell you why. Sometimes it could be a problem within ourselves. I'll give an example of myself. When I watch, I'm a Barcelona fan, I watch Barcelona play. Every time a commentator says anything against them, I say that he's biased. may not be true. It is the right of a commentator to criticize. Do you face this problem, and where does the problem lie? Really with the commentator or us as fans?
See, the technology also, what Kishore Bhimani said. Let me give an example of the 1982 Asian Games, the hockey which we lost 7-1 to Pakistan. Okay.
Not a great game to
yeah, no, the problem there, Negi, the goalkeeper, got vilified, was, you know, condemned, and people said he
Chakde is made out of
that. He got saved because of that, because there were no replays available. It wasn't seen that we made a tactical mistake, that our fullback Rajinder Singh played with a swollen knee. And on AstroTurf, if you just push the ball past him, you can't catch up. Now, because there were no replays on DD, you just saw Pakistani forward. They had an excellent forward line. They were like the Brazil of hockey, coming in and banging the goal. And Negi was seen helpless. So, you know, at that time, we were doing commentary, and the commentator's voice did tend to fade. Pakistan ka panchma goal, Pakistan ka chata goal, you know, it did go down. So, because they weren't replaced, technology evolving has helped the commentator also. Okay. You know, and also we were trained, Kishore Bhimani, myself, to be very particular. We never said we. Even when India was playing, we were very conscious that it was never. It was India, Pakistan, whatever, Barcelona, Manchester United. Correct. You were very conscious that you had to be objective, which I think has gone slightly now. It's, you know, to get more evolved.
Very important point. Yeah, I do hear commentators say we when the Indian commentators, or be it Australian. You know, have you found it tough to be neutral while doing commentary?
Oh, pretty much. You just got to understand your audience again. Like, you come to India, the Indian production companies pay you money. You don't want to sledge the hell out of the Indians, or you're not going to get invited back. But you also got to be, honest with the game and the players. It's a privilege and an honour to work in the commentary booth. Like it is representing your country. It's also your responsibility to allow the pitchers to look after themselves, and you add something to it with your own expertise or knowledge of what that player might do in the future. You've got to work a little bit. Like I like to work as a batter. I said, he's sorting Venki out. He's made him bowl short because he's looking to hook him over mid-wicket. If you know what I mean, he's trying to set him up a little bit and follow the storyline a little bit with them. But it's a lot of fun, but the best commentators are in test matches when it's dull and boring.
Right.
And that's when the real true commentator comes out, who sounds interesting like a guy at a bar, and you'll wish you were in there, you want to be with them having a conversation. Okay. That's the true key of being a commentator.
Okay. Since we are talking about bias, it just depends which side you are in. I went to England to cover the 2011 Test series, and I saw both the Sky's coverage and our Indian coverage. Lots of controversies with regards to the Vaseline gate, and you had Ian Bell being brought. If I was to watch those two different broadcasts, I would know who's on the wrong. So obviously the Indian broadcast were completely taking the Indian side, and of course the Sky broadcast taking. So I guess it's the audience that you're also talking to that makes a big difference.
Yeah, no, why I just touched on this bias. I just touched on it. I didn't want to make it a big issue, but the point I touched on it is they know a few of the commentators, especially, I mean, what happens in India, that's what I mean. I don't know how it is in Australia or so on, in the other countries, but then what I felt is they know that they can influence the decision on the selectors.
Right.
So that's what I came up to, you know. So that was that's why I just touched on that
which is
issue
why he says
bias.
It's a position
Otherwise it is evolved, no doubt about it.
Be very careful. Okay, now to the issue that was brought about by one of our audience members, and I was going to get into it, is, and I'll go across to Mr. Bhimani, because you mentioned that there are less restrictions now, and I'm guessing you were talking about the technological restrictions that you had in your time, but I'm talking about different restrictions now. We all know it's now in print as well, that when you do commentary in India, you have to sign a contract with the broadcasters. There are certain things you can't talk about. You cannot talk about the cricket board, you cannot talk about DRS. How does one then, a viewer who's listening to that commentary, expect the commentator to be objective in a scenario like this?
Well, I'll give you my very candid opinion. I think these restrictions are far too overstated. You know that Ian Chappell, I understand, refused to be part of the commentary team this time because of the thing that he cannot criticize the board, he cannot criticize selection, he cannot talk about the VRS. The whole UDRS business was that you are not allowed to talk about on TV. I think these restrictions are way out of line, they're way over the top. In our days, it was different. Yeah, you couldn't talk about the sponsor because DD did not take, advertisements. You could not talk about the umpiring decisions because there was a problem. You cannot, umpires are neutral, they're respected, and you're not allowed to talk about it. You were allowed to talk about selection. I did. I remember the time that I was doing commentary 81-82 series, where very incidentally, I'd like to point out that the British press, or the British commentators and the Indian commentators were at extreme loggerheads. They said that the series had been lost because of the umpires. They called it the little and large show because there was Swaroop Kishan and Ramaswamy there. But that bias is another kind of bias, and the fact is that the two media differ. The English commentary was totally different from our commentary. But here, the restrictions that are imposed today are perhaps not so much technical as the fact that the board, I think the commentary team should be independent of the board. I think the Star TV network, or whichever network is doing the commentary, setting up the commentary box, they should have the freedom. They should say the normal restriction that you don't talk about streakers, you don't talk about, you don't use strong language, you don't talk about color bias and things like that, fair enough. But the fact that you can't criticize the board, the fact that you can't criticize selectors, the fact that you can't criticize certain aspects of a player, I think it's over the top.
Okay, over the top. Don't talk about the streakers, definitely show it to them on camera. But Gaurav, I'll get back to the point that you spoke about the IPL commentators. You said how they make this game interesting. But now as a cricket fan looking, can you really enjoy a commentator that the likes of Ravi Shastri, Ramesh Raja that you mentioned? You also know that they're the same commentators. When the biggest controversy happened in IPL, they were like ostriches with their heads in the sand. Do you still enjoy a commentary like that?
The deal is when something like that happens, you switch off. As a cricket fan, I switch off. I stop writing about the game. I usually cartoon. I don't. I feel pretty damn bad about the game. That is it. I think a lot of people would feel that. But
do you enjoy the same?
No, I think you need to detach. What does happen is, because it's again, I get back, cricket is like a drug for a lot of us in India. So you will have that withdrawal for maybe a week when you don't watch the game, you know, and then you get back to it. And that's the terrible thing of being dependent on cricket like a drug. And I think you tend to, I don't think you forget, because a lot of people now are bitter. Most of the conversations on Twitter, most of the guys I know who write on cricket are talking about those very things throughout the IPL. Right. They are talking about CSK, they are talking about the people who were involved, are involved, have not been taken to book.
And yet those commentators don't talk about
that. We talk about the Supreme Court. I mean, that's what I said. What the Supreme Court couldn't do, Kings 11 Punjab did. They knocked CSK out of the IPL. You know, I mean, that's how bitter you feel at every point. I find it very difficult to watch CSK play. I mean, I'm telling you. And I love some of those cricketers as cricketers. True. And that is the Indian team, you know.
So you have this bias against CSK in that sense.
No, but I wouldn't say a bias. I would say it's what I have seen over the last few years about how Indian cricket is being controlled by a cabal. I mean, it is so obvious.
And yet you
I don't watch CSK games. I try not to, and I try not to watch DD games because they just are so bad.
But yet you enjoy the same commentators who are in a sense part of that cabal doing commentary.
We all are, and that's the terrible part. You know, you are.
So you know you're doing something wrong, and yet you do it. Well, it's like
because it's nice. Because on the off chance that you might see CSK lose.
The point is the commentators, are they supposed to be editorial, or does the newspapers do that? Should we as
at least be independent, the first thing.
Well, that's fine, I've got no problem with that. But as commentators, your job really, number one, is to call the game, why is this player doing that? And you have to talk about selection, because they're the 11 guys, the protagonists out there.
DRS, you're not allowed to talk about DRS. Isn't that then an issue? Because you will have situations where that is part of the play.
Yes, and it is. And I remember I interviewed VVS at the Boxing Day Test match, and they were talking about DRS, and it was a press conference. And I asked him, right, I'm going to put you in a situation where you're on 99, you need 1 run to win, and a ball and an inside edge, and it's deflected that much, and the umpire's given you out. How do you feel about DRS now? And you could have made the run. And he said, I can't comment. Well, so you don't like making 100, don't like winning? What part of that did you like?
True.
So I don't think we've got, you know, great commentators can get away with all that type of stuff anyway. And they did it in the past, and they'll do it in the future.
Right. Okay, interesting point. So let me just ask the viewers, can commentators, and some of them are great commentators, we spoke about them, can they get away? Do you, as a cricket viewer, have that in mind that they will not be talking about certain things, that you know that they will be biased over certain things? Do you still enjoy the commentary as much? You had a point to make? Yeah.
I remember the 2011 India-Shore of England, the second test match.
Right.
Stuart Broad took a hat-trick, Harbhajan Singh had a big inside edge. Nasir Hussain and Ravi Shastri had a clash on air.
Right.
It was clearly about DRS, and Nasir Hussain had all the valid points. But since Ravi Shastri was hired by BCCI, so he had to defend BCCI, because it is very difficult for the game to go forward without the DRS.
Okay.
You see in the IPL, each and every no ball close call has been referred. You have close catches being referred, so it's very difficult to go forward without the DRS, and it makes no sense to not talk about DRS and the selections. Commentators should have their views, because the viewer wants to know that why some player has been dropped.
In IPL they still talk about selection, but not Indian cricket as much. Anyone else who doesn't take commentary very seriously after like he makes valid points there?
I think it's very frustrating as a viewer to see that such big things are happening, like the spot fixing scandal or the recent things, and they are just like that. Nothing's happened. They're like that will go on. Nothing's happened. Like you said, like an ostrich in the. Put your head in the sand.
Right.
So it's very frustrating that such big things are happening around you, and you're not even talking about it. You're just saying that you're just behaving like nothing's happening.
Okay. So the audience isn't naive, right? Right. One more comment I'll quickly take from here. The audience isn't naive.
No, you can't. You're a commentator.
Yeah, I'll lose my
Yeah, everyone knows about the biases in commentary that's going on for a long time. But you can't, saying that commentary, just generalizing that it's bad is, I think, a wrong point to make. Because, at the end of the day, I remember watching Sir Dean Jones saying, going, gone. We still enjoy that, all of that. And
innovation in commentary.
Innovation, and that's what makes cricket attractive to a person who doesn't really watch cricket that much.
Okay. Do you know why you made Dean Jones even more happy? Not just by mentioning that going, gone. You called him Sir. So that would have made him even... A final question to you, Venki. Does it then all boil down to the individual? We spoke about these restrictions. They are there in place. Does it boil down to an individual? Would you, for that matter, if you were given a commentary contract and if you wanted to be objective, would you refuse it? I know some players have. Ian Chappell is a great example. He refused to do commentary.
Well, you got to play within the rules, isn't it? So if there is restrictions on certain things, you don't really speak about it. That's as simple as that. Yes, I've been, as I said earlier, I've been in the commentary box, and it's just told, or it's not just said that you cannot be commenting on DRS or whatever, but then it. The board is objecting on that. And but personally speaking, if there's technology available, I think we should use the technology.
Okay.
But again, to what extent? Because not everything that has been provided is correct, isn't it?
We won't get into the DRS debate. We'll need another show for that.
I just want to ask everyone here, do you like to see more stats? Like, I'm a stat man. Do you like to see more stats? Because I can feel sorry for the guys in the old days. They didn't get the chance to put the graphics up, and you've got to really know your stuff. Now they've got statisticians to help you out, but you like to see more stats and all that type of stuff.
Okay, so we'll take a break at this point. And very interesting point by Dino. What are the things that we can do to make commentary better? The commentary innovations is what we'll talk about, but after a short break. Welcome back to our special show. We are looking at the evolution of cricket commentary. We did a lot of commentator bashing in our first segment, but this time we'll look at our favorite commentators, things that they get right. Okay, so we're trying to look at your favorite commentators and why do you like them. And I'll start with the senior most in our panel. Mr. Bhimani, your personal favorite commentator, and why did you enjoy either working or listening to that person?
Well, I'm talking about the current commentators. I think very highly of most of them. I enjoy Dino because he's very entertaining. I enjoy Ravi Shastri because he's never a dull moment. Sunil Gavaskar for his erudition. But not getting into too many people, I really believe that David Gow, I like listening to David Gow more than anybody else. A lot of people don't agree. They like Lloyd, they like people like Jeff Boycott. But to me, the entertaining commentators, Ramiz Raja, people like Harsha Bhogle, Dean Jones. Give me these three any day.
Okay, lovely. I love him. All right. Okay, Novi,
Good guy,
to you.
isn't he? Fantastic.
Your favorite commentator, and you work with so many of them.
Yes, okay. Look, cricket-wise, I'll tell you, Richie Benaud, because when we were I was moving from radio to TV, we were asked to listen to Richie Benaud. You know, the idea of silence, let the pictures breathe. You know, Richie Benaud was...
That's something we've forgotten, actually.
Yes, we have. It's really, I mean, quite unforgettable. I'd like to also, the younger audience, that, you know, we are all very English-centric, because obviously English is such a major language. In other sports, like football, you know, you listen to some of the Brazilian commentators. The man who did the 1950 World Cup, well, it wasn't the final, the last league match when Brazil lost to Uruguay, and Uruguay scored that winning goal 12 minutes before time. Immediately that excitement comes out, goal, it came out like that. Then he realized the goal was against Brazil. So he said it in 9 different ways. You know, ladies and gentlemen, this is the goal, we may lose. No, but Brazil can come back. You know, there was so much variety. The British are much more reserved. And also with the big advantage of having test players and all in cricket is anecdotes. You know, I think lots of younger people, you like anecdotes.
Oh, yes.
And what Dean Jones made was a great point. The earlier 70s, 80s, we take sheets of paper, you know. You had to bring out stats. That all comes much easier now.
What I find interesting is not just a commentator, but when they pair up. The chemistry between two guys.
Oh,
because that's the way.
Go ahead.
I mean, this was a series in Sri Lanka when Ian Chappell and Sanjay Manjrekar were on together. And it was a really dull period of play. There was nothing happening. These two guys, I mean, it was like father and son who were possibly coming back together. They just are so good for each other. Now, I know a lot of people who don't like either. Strangely enough, they're not very likable people. I just find them both very absorbing. I think if you can put likability and interest away, you're not supposed to love the commentator, you're supposed to hear him. I mean, is he... I mean, a lot of people we don't like might be talking a lot of good stuff. Listen, heed. So there's a pair. The one-man show who I'd go for is Michael Holding. You know, I mean, that is like blues, bourbon, you've got a voice that has it all. I mean, simply immaculate bowling.
Before I come to Dino, Venki and Sabyasachi as well for their favorites, any crowd favorites other than the commentators that we have not mentioned here? And just tell us your favorite comment and why do you?
My favorite commentator would be Harsha Bhogle, no doubt, because the fact is that he doesn't come from a cricket background, and the way he approaches the technicalities, and even during a test match, he never gets it boring, he never gets it dull. So my pick would be Harsha Bhogle any day.
Okay, couple more. Yeah, go ahead.
While any batsman is batting, it had to be Sunil Gavaskar.
Okay.
The technicalities he tells us about the game, like why the batsman is leaving the ball, or why there was an edge, he's just superb at that.
Right, his anecdotes actually I enjoy the most. Yeah.
I would say Mark Nicholson. Because he had that voice that you would want to listen to for say 7 to 8 hours from morning 10 a.m. to evening 4 to 5 p.m. just because he brought that thing into the game despite being not being that great a cricketer.
I really love Danny Morrison because of the energy and the animosity.
The double D and the double G. Okay, great. Dino, to you now. Some of them picked you.
Well, they can remember that far back. You get some wonderful times. I remember there was one time that I was commentating with the great late Tony Gregg, one of my dear friends.
Right.
And it was a bit of a boring spot, and not down at Gaul. And Australia was playing Sri Lanka. And this is when you've got to actually dig deep. You know, you're talking about, and everyone's gone block. And I said to Tony, I don't think there's many people at this ground today. It's getting the attention. We said, well, let's go around the ground and count them. And they had the camera go around on going 1, 2, 3. We got to 134. And you had a bit of a blast along the way. You're talking about half a bridge and all that type of stuff. And that's what it helps, I think, being an ex-test cricketer or an ex-player to explain what's going on. But also the greats, the orators, the wordsmiths like the Harshes and that have also been very good. Mark Nicholas actually scored 35 first-class hundreds and played as captain of Hampshire for many years. But you still got to have a gift, you still got to know your knowledge, you still got to have a voice that people are happy with, and you still got to have fun.
Okay, Venki, I know you don't enjoy your commentary.
Not much. I don't really.
We'll put him on mute.
Yeah. So it is not that I keep it on mute, but yes, Sunil and Ravi are two very good commentators who which India's got, and Nazir Hussain, someone who listen to.
Yeah, Nazir actually. Okay.
Ian Chappell as well, yes.
Chappell as well. Yeah, this
Absolutely,
is
yes.
also my personal favorite. Sabyasachi, to you, and we heard this talented young man do a lot of commentators. Before I ask you your favorite commentator, how long have you been doing it, and when did this start, this love for cricket commentary?
Well, I always had a keen interest in cricket from my childhood. I mean, I always used to...
You sound like yourself.
Yeah, this is my own voice.
Sorry.
So I always had a keen interest in cricket from my childhood, and in my college I used to do this during the college breaks. I used to take a situation, and friends used to give an abstract situation. Suppose Sachin Tendulkar is going to get out at 99, just tell us about it. So that is how I learned. Initially I used to do one voice at a time, but slowly and slowly I developed the skill, and I used to do 4 and 5 voices together. And
Okay, because you know, not just the voice, the kind of things that you say also, that actually raises a very important question. Is it a sameness to most cricket commentators, which is why you've been able to pick all of that? Most of them say roughly the same things and each has their own style?
No, I think the commentators have got different styles. I mean Tony Greig has got a completely different style like Harsha Bhogle. I mean, like we were discussing about the favorite commentators. I mean, among the current generation, Harsha Bhogle is my favorite commentator. But if we think about all the commentators, Tony Greig is my favorite. I mean, all of us remember Sachin Tendulkar's innings at Sharjah. But if Tony Greig wouldn't have been there, I think it wouldn't have lasted in our memories for such a long time. So I think we should give credit to all the commentators for whatever they have contributed, because even if we, I mean, the innings that we see, I think the flavor that gets added, I think the commentators deserve a huge round of applause for that.
Yeah, that Sharjah knock, I can still remember those words. He says he's half his size and he's smashed him over the ground.
Right.
Yeah, correct. Okay, now Tony Greig, Harsha Bhogle you've spoken about. When you listen to cricket commentary, what are the things that you think are lagging here? Or, I mean, you know, things that commentators or a commentary as such can work upon?
I think the commentary can become more interesting. I mean the biasness factor that we are discussing here.
You do find that too?
Yeah, in some cases I do find, and I think the commentators should be accountable for that. They should be saying that okay, we should not be biased in any of the matches that we are part of it, because see, they are the role models of many kids. I mean, okay, now cricket commentary is a very difficult job to get. We know that very few have done it. Harsha Bhogle has done it. I mean, Tony Cozier has done it, but still they are the role model of many people. So I think if they are not biased, I think that should be great for all the young kids following them.
Okay, I'm afraid that's all the time that we have on the show. I had a great time discussing this. Thanks so much for joining us, Mr. Bhimani, Novi Kapadia, Gaurav here, Dino, Venki. But we have a final treat for you. We have a performance there from Sabyasachi. Sabyasachi, take it away. Come.
So welcome back here at the show for cricket. The IPL is over now. The Indian team is going to be selected for the series in England. I got Ravi Shastri alongside me. Ravi, very important series coming up against England from July. Absolutely, Harsha. I think before the World Cup, that's in 2015, I think India should have the correct team to going for England, and because this is the last chance. India's record in the overseas is terrible, but I think if they can still get the right team, I think they can still pull up some good performances in England. I think what's disappointing for me in the selection for Bangladesh is that they haven't allowed players like Sehwag and others to come back, because this has been an ideal opportunity for the players who are not in the fray for quite a long time to come back in form, and who knows, Sehwag can still be a danger player for India's chances in 2015 World Cup. Yes, that's what Ravi Shastri is pointed. Tony Greig is also down the centre, is with somebody, Sachin Tendulkar alongside him.
Yes, thanks very much, Harsha. I was listening to you and Ravi. Well, I got Sachin Tendulkar alongside me. He's not a part of the Indian cricket team anymore, but boy, he still considers the god of Indian cricket. And I can tell you that his presence in Australia will be very much needed for India's success, Sachin.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's very important for us. And I think as they were discussing, I think we should have the right team for the 2015 World Cup. That is very important. I mean, I'm still hopeful that this team can do well. I mean, we have received a lot of criticism that we haven't done well. But if you see the Champions Trophy and other tournaments, we have done quite reasonably well in the one day. So I think we got still a good chance of making for the finals in 2015. And who knows, we can get the cup as well.
Yes, thanks very much, Sachin. Well, Sachin Tendulkar is expecting India to win. I can tell you, Australia have got a very good chance.
Great.
Thank you.